Good evening, welcome one and all to round number 11 for today's F1 Championship fight, Tier 1 ERL, of course. I'm back with obviously the 11th edition of this season and the penultimate round, of course, today. It is here at the circuit of Imola, of course. One of the most prestigious circuits that is technically on the F1 calendar when you think of it. Obviously, you know, well, many great not championship fights, but race fights we've seen over the years in Imola, such as I think it was a 2005, I believe, race between Alonso and I think I'm going to say Schumacher, of course. I'm pretty sure it was 2005. It might have been 2006. I can't exactly remember, but there's been that one. Of course, 2021 saw a decent, I think championship race actually. It was one of the more key races when you think of it for the championship in terms of the events that took place there. Because obviously, if it wasn't for that crash between George Russell and Valtteri Bottas, then things would have been certainly different, actually, in terms of the championship outcome. I think Hamilton would have finished about ninth that race, in fact, and with obviously Verstappen up in P1, of course. So it would have been, about a 23-point deficit Hamilton would have lost out there, something around that. It would have been pretty significant when you consider all in all in that very epic close season. And there's obviously been many other historic moments, and obviously not to mention the tragic death of Ayrton Senna. And of course, this year marks 30 years since that event. Obviously, that did take place back in 1994. But today, obviously, our drivers are going to be hoping that they can make their own piece of history in what is a really, really close championship fight we've got going on at the moment, of course. Now, today, technically, we could see the championship, be finished, but for that to happen, Appledorn needs to outscore Stewart by more than 20 points, and also Begduri by more than 19 points to be crowned the champion of ERL today. But that is a very unlikely scenario at play. That, something crazy would have to happen to, either one of them, for Stewart or Begduri, to be outscored by that much. But the championship right now is obviously Appledorn's to lose, I suppose. He is the driver right now currently leading the championship, and he is the driver that is obviously top of the standings and the last race winner, of course. Now, Neil technically is still within championship contention, bear in mind. So, whilst, okay, right now, if this race finished the way things are, he would be out after this race. But if, basically, he outscores Appledorn by 20 points and outscores Stewart and Begduri by about 10 or 11 points, I believe he would be back within the championship fight come the end of the season, because there will be, I think it's 33 or 31 points maximum for a race win, and ultimately there's 51 points separating him and the championship leader. So obviously just simple maths there. If he basically got a 20-point increase on Appledorn, he would obviously be back in the championship and only would need technically about a 8-point gap, or basically on Begduri and Stewart. So that's basically the state of play in terms of a championship. Obviously, Neil, as I say, is an outsider. He's very much a dark horse in the championship fight at the moment. But let's go on board then with the Mercedes driver, of course, through turns 1 and 2, it's a pretty quick left, right-hander, then obviously left again, and then same with the second chicane as well. Very much a very quick, fast-flowing couple of corners, and it's a very fast first sector actually here in Imola. Up the hill then, and it's pretty blind the next corner until you get to the top. Then you can just see where you need to turn in a little bit wide of the apex on the turn in. Did miss that just ever so slightly, but gets down the hill and into the valley and then back up the hill. Then we go into a very tight chicane. This chicane comes at you very quickly and very fast, and same with the exit. Very hard to get the car slowed down enough through there, but it does get a good exit, Neil has, and into the final couple of corners as we head then towards the old town, and then through the final corner and pretty much get the exit right it's all about, and then take the shortest run to the line that's possible. And for Neil, that is then a 1:15.7. Kev King has actually gone a little bit quicker with a 15.7.11, so that's a very decent lap time by Kev King there in the AlphaTauri. But Man's Not Bob takes then provisional pole, but not for too long, as Charlie Harris for Ferrari is now also on provisional pole with a 1:15.2. So yeah, that is the first then few drivers doing their laps and done their laps. Just one thing I want you to know, if you can actually hear me, I would like you just to comment yes, just so I know my mic is switched on and I know that I am commentating, because obviously I have the chat up on the YouTube, but I don't obviously have the volume on, so then we don't get any sort of like echo sort of thing. But yeah, I can read the chat, of course, just not got that. But anyway, Lange is then the next one we're focusing on, who's on a lap. Right now, none of our championship contenders besides Stuart has actually done a lap, but it's a 15.8 from him, which puts him only P5. So as Lange heads down the hill then here, and into the final corner, what can he do? Can he get into the top 10? Right now looking maybe a little bit slow, but it's only a 17.6 then there by himself. And I'm going to get up a track map of Imola just so I know the corner names, because they do have some pretty awesome corner names around here. I do know it's one of the better circuits when it comes to corner names, and I sort of wish all tracks did name obviously corners. So turns 2, 3, 4 is a Tamburello chicane, and obviously next one is Villeneuve. Yeah, the Villeneuve chicane, then up to Toza. Presume that's said like that, Toza or Toza. Up through Toza, then into Piratella, down into Minardi. Right now, this corner is the Alta, the Viranati chicane, and then the final corner, if I can see that, is Ravazza. So the final section of the track is the Ravazza final two. So this is obviously the Ravazza 1, Ravazza 2. Anyway, that's enough of me commenting on Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2. Right now, Appledorn then about to start his lap, and quite frankly we do have a bit of a gap actually behind to Appledorn, so that'll be quite nice. So we won't miss Appledorn, not Appledorn, sorry, Arbeduri's lap. So right, through the Tamburello chicane then, does take turns 1, 2 quite nicely. Through 3, taking a lot of the curb on the exit, but not too greedy either. Then into turn 4, 5, through the Villeneuve chicane, up into Toza. And up the hill now, towards Piratella. So be back down the hill then, into Acque Minali, and then into Viretta or Veneta chicane, which will be the next one. Right now, he is doing a good lap, 49.9 for the middle sector, so that is very competitive. And out of the Viranetta chicane, so only 2 more corners to go in Ravazza 1 and 2. And once he gets down to Ravazza 1 and 2, out of the final corner, where is this going to put the championship leader? Can he get ahead of Charlie Harris? And the answer to that is yes. So now let's go back to Arbeg Duri, who's coming now down the hill towards Ravazza 1 and 2. But I think he's actually backed off and backed out of the lap. Yes, he has, because he was doing a lot of weaving and dancing. That suggests to me might have made a mistake on that last lap. Does have the battery fully recharged almost, so won't really be too much of an effect. Only means he does have slightly more worn tyres. But actually, sometimes that can obviously help you and benefit you, because obviously with those tyres now being a bit more scrubbed and a bit more up to speed, means he might just be able to get a bit more purchase. But was wide through that first corner, and yeah, unsurprisingly, he has backed off and backed out. So I presume that will be him coming back into the pits, and we'll see him go again. So Stuart then here, starting a lap. He's obviously your other championship contender. Right now, currently P6 is about 8 tenths or 7 tenths, sorry, behind your current pole sitter. Through turn 1, 2, pretty nicely. Then into the Villeneuve chicane and up towards Tozer after this. Does have a bit of traffic ahead of him, as we can see, so hopefully them cars get nicely out of the way. He is up already by a tenth on his time, and they are absolutely perfectly out of the way there, so they will not impede him, and therefore won't be a distraction at all, as he then heads towards the down the hill into the valley into Miranali, and then up the hill into Viranata chicane. Does again have a bit more traffic, a little bit up ahead, but I don't think it'll be too much of a problem again for Stuart, who's again though invalidated, and that is his lap ruined, unfortunately. Charlie Harris has gone back onto provisional pole, and Mufasa moves up on his time by 7 tenths up into P7, so that's a good effort from him. Right now, Top Car Flogger isn't doing anything more at the moment, so we'll see then what is Bouncy doing. He's 2 seconds down at the moment. Arbigduri, surprisingly, I don't know if he's come in for another set of tyres, I don't think he has, but he's attempting it again than this lap, and is he going to be doing better? He is now 7 tenths up, so maybe he's just focused on getting in a banker here, because obviously his first 2 laps haven't quite gone exactly according to plan, so I imagine this isn't going to be the most competitive you'll see from him. But anyway, down the hill towards then Miranali, and then back up towards the Viranata chicane, then here. And obviously we'll get into that chicane. Gets a car, well, not doing too badly there. 2.9 seconds up, obviously making a big, massive improvement, as you'd expect. His first lap was very much uncompetitive. Still got Dan Dan yet to make a actual time. I'm not sure if he's on a qualifying ban, might be. But anyway, through the final part of the lap, he will go and crosses the line now. Actually, that's not too bad, considering those tyres are 3 laps old. A 1:15.187, only about 30 thousandths off Appledorn. That's a very decent lap indeed for what it's worth. So, we're into the final now, 6.5 minutes of quali. Neil's done a lap, which puts him P6. Right now, Stuart's also done a lap, which saw him go up to 4th. But obviously, these drivers will be now coming in. And I think we're going to get that just awkward moment of silence. We do have a few cars probably attempting a lap here, or about to go onto one. Let's see where them cars are. I think Brian's actually on a new lap, so we'll follow Brian as he heads up the hill then. Brian then heading through Piratella. Bit wide there. Could be a bit more closer to the apex, and also having a bit of a mid-corner moment. But anyway, down the hill, cutting those corners a little bit there as well for good measure. Certainly using all the track and a bit more. But nonetheless, takes a lot of curb through the chicane, and ultimately, in doing so, gains probably a bit of time. down into Ravazza 1 and through Ravazza 2, coming towards the line now. And what time will this be? It'll be a 16.5. Certainly a few corners cut there, but nonetheless, certainly in the end did get in a very good lap time. 16.5, we'll brush it over that, I'm sure. And Lucky Egg's invalidated. Luckily, he's, I suppose, at the pit entry. Otherwise, would have had to go again had he not made the pit entry. So, here is White Elliott, then, currently outside the top 10, and I imagine he'll be looking to get into the top 10. He's currently, well, this will be probably his last lap, but the good news for him, he's got absolutely no one on the track, well, besides Brian and obviously Vouncey, but them two cars will not affect him at all. So a clear track, but 2 tenths down on his current best, so isn't making any sort of improvement at the moment. So can he maybe find a bit of time in this middle sector? Well, he would certainly need to if he wants to break into that top 10. Right now, he's about 20 thousandths off that. Bit wide through there, so certainly going to lose more time as well. Missing the apex almost completely, and is 7 tenths down now. So, as he heads it down towards Ravazza, he's going to have to put in one almighty final sector. The only good news is, actually, he probably can make it back into the pits anyway, if he does have another set of tyres, and probably can go again. I imagine we'll see him head in, absolutely, and there we go. So, that's him now back into the pits. So, good. That was, I suppose, in a way, a little bit of a blessing in disguise that he weren't improving, but in another sense, he's also lost a set of tyres. Maybe he was trying to save for race 3 going a bit early. Not sure, but unless he's used all 3 sets of his tyres, obviously, for qualifying, I think you have about 3 or 4, depending on how many you've decided to go with, ultimately, in the end. So, Arbeck-Dury is going to be then the first of all the major players to obviously take on the lap here. His final run this will be in qualifying, and given it will be his final run, that means after this he cannot go again. So for the penultimate round, what can Arbeck-Dury do then? Right now, Stewart is still yet to leave the pits, but I believe he's just leaving now. Appledorm's also just left the pit, so them two are going to be a fair bit behind, and we'll focus on them a little bit later on into the qualifying. But first driver of the top 3 is going to commit to a lap. So through turn 1, 2, takes a lot of curb on the right, but nonetheless is certainly therefore attacking. And I'm not sure, has he backed off? That light is flashing, so I think he may have done. And therefore, just see what his first sector is. It's 1.5 seconds down. So yeah, he has definitely backed off then. So let's see what Einkid then is doing, because he's the next one then, I suppose, that we should focus on, as he'll be the next driver on a lap. Currently outside the top 10. Is about 2 tenths away from Lucky Egg's time. So, up then the hill. Is he going to be improving here? And currently he is 2 tenths up, so certainly this might just see him jump ahead of Lucky Egg, the Alpine driver. Maybe getting a bit of a tow from his teammate. I'm not entirely sure that was ideal as they head down the hill from Dandan. That might have just slowed his teammate down a little bit, but yeah, that's certainly not really sure if that was trying to be pre-planning, but nonetheless does go up to P7, so did it slow him down? I'm not entirely sure. So, who is next? I think next is Charlie Harris, because Appledorm and Stewart are coming down the hill. So, Charlie Harris then has invalidated, so pretty much that'll be his qualifying over. So who's next then out of these three? I think it might be Stewart. So here comes Stewart then. What can, obviously, one of the championship protagonists do? I don't think Arbejduri's actually Arbejduri, sorry, my apology, is ahead of Stewart. So we'll follow Arbejduri. Currently 3/10 quicker. Has a bit of traffic, which certainly going to get in his way. Not sure how much he might have lost there. I think it just, well, that Haas driver just got out of the way at just the right time. But actually, as he comes through the middle sector, he's now only 34 thousandths up on his time. So this might not be the time he's looking for to get provisional pole. So unless he can do something spectacular in the final sector of the lap after being impeded like that, then that obviously could affect his qualifying run. Anyway, for the Aston Martin driver, goes P2, misses out on the provisional pole. Stewart's about to cross the line now. Can he get pole? He's crossing it now, goes P2, displaces Arbejduri. What about Appledorn? Only 68 thousandths up on his time through the middle sector. So is he going to have to get that time to get onto the front row? The answer is no. Misses out on the front row. So it's Charlie Harris on pole. Unless man's not Bob got something to say. Or how about, obviously, Top Car Flogger? The answer to that will be no as well. And that is then your qualifying over for Tier 1. But the three championship protagonists, I tell you what, not bad grid positions for them. And Charlie Harris, obviously, on pole here in ERL tonight at Imola, of course, with a 14.8. It's also a 14.8 for Stewart and for Appledorn. Pretty much only about 30 thousandths separating the top three. Then a little bit more further back is obviously Arbejduri, but still within a tenth of a second. So very close between the top four equally. And you know what? Probably Arbejduri would have been on pole had he not been impeded. That certainly slowed him down, that impediment there, that did. So yeah, missed out on pole, Arbejduri did, due to that. But nonetheless, Charlie Harris won't care because he is your pole sitter for today. So, Charlie Harris, by 11 thousandths of a second, takes pole position from Stewart in P2. Appledorn P3, 30 thousandths back off the pole sitter, and then 59,000 further back is then Arbejduri. Then Manzanog Bob is 5th, Mafasa 6th. 7th is Neil, Top Car Flogger 8th, Iron Kid 9th, and Kev King rounds out the top 10. Then, outside the top 10, we have White Elliot, Lucky Egg, Ralphie, Tom, FC Ash and Shade, then Brian, then Morgan, then Lange, then Vauncy, and no set time, obviously the McLaren driver of Dandan, who will round out the back of the grid. But a very compact qualifying overall, pretty much. We've got, 16 cars within 1.6 seconds of each other, so that's a very decent compact qualifying there. And overall, a very close one between the top four. 59,000 separating them all, which is pretty insane and incredible. I don't think it's closest ever we've seen qualifying. I think we've seen qualifying where we've had obviously drivers on 1,000ths or something. You know, really, really insane. But yeah, good qualifying overall from them all. So, we are just waiting on our drivers to set their setups up. And once they set up their setups, then ultimately, we will be ready to go. There we go then. 5 red lights, And it is go, go, go for the Italian Grand Prix at Imola. I think Stewart got the better jump, but obviously Charlie Harris will have the better inside line down towards turn 1. So it's going to be who can outbrake the other, and in the end Stewart comes out on top there. But we've got Arbejdori tumbling down to the back of the grid, and that's obviously in a championship deciding race, potentially a absolute abysmal start from obviously one of your championship protagonists who has tumbled down towards the back of the field, and that could be, well, could be in the end championship over for himself, because obviously Appledorm, he only has to outscore obviously Arbejduri by 19 points. If obviously Arbejduri well, finishes today, and Appledorn would be your champion, but obviously still has to outscore Appledorn, the other drivers anyway, further down the field. So going to have a look, see what's going on. Lucky Egg having a look, maybe going side by side. A bit of a mistake from Lange on the exit there, so that's going to see potentially Lucky Egg side by side down into Ravazza. But as we get towards Ravazza, he gets the position, or does he? Because Lange came really back at him under brakes, and yeah, properly sent it under braking, and I think Lucky had replied there to that, sending it back down as well. But as come into the pits on lap 1, Arbejduri, as you can see, coming in for a new wing. So yeah, got caught up in turn 1, and that's really the risk here at Imola. Probably is one of them circuits where, you know, it's not easy to overtake, and certainly with turn 1, very easy to have an accident, as we just saw, and that is obviously, well, going to be a long race back for him. And, you know, probably for him now, you know, you probably won't be thinking about the championship, you just be thinking about getting back into the race more than anything right now for himself, because obviously his championship contenders of Stewart and Appledorn are currently 2nd and 3rd on the road. Currently Charlie Harris, though, is your race leader. Neil also having a bit of a poor race start. He was, I think, caught up in all that lap 1 shenanigans, and of course in doing so has seen him also probably out of championship contention, but he weren't really in the championship contention either way. As I said, he was an outsider come the start of the stream. Anyway, let's see where the closest battle is on the track. Right now, there is a bit of like a field spread. No one really going side by side. But actually, here comes Dandan. Doesn't have a DRS. DRS will be now active on this lap. So, therefore, cars that are within a second might therefore be able to benefit of it. Obviously, we only have the one DRS zone around Imola. Therefore, that makes passing probably so much harder. And this circuit is not really the most easiest to pass. In fact, you could argue it's harder than Monaco, or harder than definitely Hungary overall when it comes to trying to get a pass on your rival, because with that one DRS zone, you've only got really the one opportunity at it. Otherwise, you know, when I think of passing opportunities, there's not really many opportunities I can think of around here, because, you know, this chicane, unless you go good exit up the hill here, you're not going to make a pass into there. Maybe Ravazza 1 could be a good opportunity, but again, you have to be very much alongside. But going back to the championship fight for the race lead anyway, Stewart gets the overtake done and moves himself back up into P1. So that is pretty much then see him go to the front of the grid. Right, going back though towards Dandan. Dandan has got the DRS this time around, so can he get the move done on Mafasa? Mafasa still ahead come the braking zone, I think, but as we get to the braking zone and on the corner entry and exit, it's going to be Dandan taking that position away from the Ferrari driver of Mafasa, and that is Mafasa now down to 15th and Dandan up into 14th. So, Shade is made a move. I think Ralphie's made a bit of a mistake there, and he's now up into 8th. As I said, one of the best probably developed drivers I've seen in this league overall. He's come on a long way and still showing that as well, as you can see. Skips and hops through the chicane. Doesn't get quite a good exit. This is going to allow Ralphie to come back at the Alfa Romeo driver of FC Shade and into Ravazza 1. Obviously, we'll have the DRS. Does go a little bit deep, Ralphie did, and obviously Shade trying to break the toe, maybe. If not, had a bit of a moment on the exit, one or the other. Anyway, can Ralphie get past? He's got the DRS. And as we get to the braking zone, the answer is no. But trying to get a switchback here, move done maybe. He's going to get the better exit as we go towards the Villeneuve chicane. Also in the background, we've got also Lucky Egg trying to make the move on Morgan. And Morgan made the move as well. And so did Ralphie. And that sees both Ralphie and Lucky Egg up into 8th and 10th. Ahead of then Shade down in 9th. And Morgan now down in 11th. So that's them two plus, but this group, by the looks of it, is going to be sticking with one another throughout this race. Now, again, we've had another positional change for the leader. I think right now these two are just DRS tricking, or not DRS tricking one another, are playing with the DRS to use it to pull away from Appledorm at the moment. And they are pulling away pretty nicely. Both of them looking like they're evenly matched on pace. Appledorm doesn't appear to be as fast during this stint at the moment. I'm going to get up the tyre graphic just so we know what tyres each of them are on. So right now, then, that might give us the answer why, obviously, Appledorm isn't right now as competitive as what we're seeing from these front two, because Appledorm's chosen to go hards, whereas the front two have chosen to go mediums. So that is probably the reasoning of why. But FCS and Shade has got up then back into 8th and pulls ahead of Ralphie. Ralphie, though, gets a decent exit, but not good enough to where he can make the move again into the Villeneuve chicane, and has to settle now back for 9th. And Lucky Egg still then there. Bit of a move going on again for 17th, but actually that's just Brandt entering the pits. So, can Stewart now break away? Right now, there is about a 3.5 second gap, or 3 second, sorry, gap between your race leader and right now, obviously, Appledorm. So that is the gap right now. I'm going to get up the gap to the leader. So right now, actually, to be fair, Appledorm is sitting fairly comfortable and pretty in P3. Obviously, it's a 32 lap race around here, so right now we've only done, well, not even half race distance yet. So through turn 1 and turn 2, Charlie Harris gets the leader back with that DRS, obviously, and now is ahead of Stewart once more. The only thing I would say for Stewart and for Charlie Harris, or certainly for Stewart, like, Charlie Harris doesn't need to think of the championship here. Stewart might want to think of the championship, and ultimately, for obviously Stewart, does he really want to get drawn into this battle with Charlie Harris? I know there's a win on the line. I know that could be critical come the final round of the season, but obviously at this stage in the race, I think it's better to work with Charlie Harris and try and break away and not get drawn into a fight. If Charlie Harris is quicker, let Charlie Harris pull you along, if that makes sense. That's at least how I would foresee it. But, well, in the end, it's down to the driver on the track to foresee it how they want to foresee it. Not for me to tell them what to do. And Stewart has now re-overtaken, then his rival of Charlie for the race lead. The only good thing as well, Charlie Harris doesn't need to worry about, well, Stewart doesn't need to also worry about Charlie Harris being kind to Appledorm, because, again, nothing really for Charlie Harris to gain through helping Appledorm out in the championship at all whatsoever. So FC Ashton Shades still holding on well to that P8 and doing a nice job there. Ralphie back up into 9th, Lucky Egg in 10th, and Morgan in 11th. These four sticking together like glue right now on the racetrack. However, if they fight too much, then potentially they could allow Dan into this. And right now, they are costing probably each other time to Tom. But Tom won't mind, because right now he's sitting happy in P7, I'm sure. And Mufasa's out. What's happened there? So Mufasa is out of this race, and that has triggered a safety car. So yeah, Mufasa is out, safety car out, and well, actually for the hard runners, this isn't ideal because, well, for the medium runners, this is probably nice to have because I'm pretty sure their pit stops wouldn't have been that far away. But for the hard runners, this is far from the ideal situation here because them drivers are going to now effectively have to make a choice. Do they stay out on the tyres that they're on, or do they come in and put on a medium set of compound? The only trouble is 20 laps it will be, probably. They have, well, 19 racing laps, I reckon, they'll have to do in a racing situation on that set of tyres. And that's a lot of laps to obviously go and do, 19 laps. So, for them, of course. But for the hard, 19 laps is probably doable. I think 19 laps would be more than doable for a set of the hard. So I imagine we'll see the front two in. Do we see Appledorn come in? And the answer to that is no. So Appledorn chooses to stay out on what he's got. He believes that's the right call. But we are going to see Elliot. Sorry, Manzanar, Bob and Elliot. Are we going to see Elliot come in? Yep. The answer to that is yes. So Stuart will come out in this race effectively P2. But obviously, not only is he going to come out P2, but yeah, this is obviously probably better for Stuart than it is for Appledorn, because Appledorn now has to make a stop, and if we don't get another safety car, Stuart could be about 20 seconds up the road, effectively, if not more. And can Appledorn really offset his tyres that much where he would gain 20 seconds? And the other trouble is, if Appledorn couldn't do that, he might, well, he's going to potentially lose the position very quickly on this safety car restart. I do fear for, obviously, Appledorn right now. But we'll have to wait and see. The person that I imagine will be the happiest the most will be Arbeg Duri, because effectively this brings him back into the race a little bit, which, as I say, for him, that's probably all he was thinking of, getting back into the race. Obviously, championship, probably not really thinking about that at the moment, but yeah, certainly would be, or would like to get back into the race and maybe try and obviously score a very good point score despite his current situation. This is certainly a damage limitation exercise for the Aston Martin driver. In terms of the constructors, I think that's actually important to go through. I didn't actually go through that. I'm not sure. Let me just have a quick look, see if that is wrapped up. So at the moment, that is not wrapped up. Right now, we do have technically 4 teams in the fight there. And the maximum, I think, well, any team can score probably is about 54. So, yeah, right now, Alfa Romeo do lead that constructors table. However, it must be stressed, whilst they do lead, there's only 23 points between the 4 teams at the moment. So, yeah. That is very, very close indeed between teams and drivers at the moment. But Alfa Romeo do have a slender advantage, and therefore they are the team. Well, right now would probably be scoring the most points, because Alfa Romeo would score probably about 26 with Stewart, and then they'd be scoring about, I don't know how many they'd score with FCS and Shade, who's currently sat 8th. But I imagine they'd score a fair few for 8th. So, yeah, obviously, for Appledorn right now, he would score the most points. So I reckon safety car will be in next lap, and therefore we will have about 19 laps of racing left to go. Now, the situation is, as I said, Appledorn is currently on 10 lap old hards, effectively 8 9 lap hold when it comes to racing. That's how many he's done. So effectively there'll be probably around, I don't know, 30 something percent at the moment, maybe almost at 40% potentially. I reckon there'll probably be about between 30 and 40% in terms of tyre wear. For obviously Stewart, he right now has made his stop, same with Charlie Harris, so the pair of them do not have to pit again. Strategy wise, they are in the hot seat right now, the pair of them two, but for Appledorn, he's the one that does have to stop, and I believe he's the only car that hasn't made a stop at the moment. Obviously Arbeck-Dury, he did stop on lap 1, went to the hards due to that first lap incident, so he doesn't have to stop again either. Bear that in mind. But of course those hards are 10 laps old, and could he do an entire race on a set of hard tyres? I mean, it'd be ambitious. It certainly, in theory, is potentially plausible, but I don't think it would be smart. However, for Appledorn, he must make a stop at some point during this race. So when he does, where does he come out? Can he pull out, a 20-second gap to, let's say, the likes of Man's Not Bob, or maybe to, Tom, or to FCS and Shade? That's where the issue lays for him. And how quickly does Stewart get past? And how much of a gap will Stewart pull out? So has he potentially thrown a potential race win opportunity away? But whatever he did was always going to be a tough one and a tough call. But we are back under racing green then, and we have now got this race restarted. It's a decent natural jump by Appledorn, so there won't be any threat of seeing him then into turn 1 being overtaken on this lap then here. But look at who's going for it. It's Man's Not Bob trying to get the switchback, but it's going to be Top Car Flogger getting the switchback on him and into the Villeneuve chicane. As we get ahead into that chicane on the exit, it's going to be Top Car Flogger coming out ahead of then the Alpine driver. A yellow flag is out for JR Morgan, who may have gone into the gravel then at the exit of the Villeneuve chicane. Not entirely sure what happened to him, but we were focusing on Man's Not Bob, and obviously Top Car Flogger down the hill then into the valley and into Mirtele, or whatever it's called. Anyway, that's enough of calling the names. Anyway, into the Gravazza chicane, or whatever it's called, and then into Gravazza 1. But yeah, nonetheless, down the hill, Tom trying to pressurise Elliott, but Stewart's actually got past now Appledorn and already built himself a 1.3, 1.4 make that second advantage, and no DRS is enabled, so at the moment it is literally just cars purely trying to overtake each other on the basis of pace. And that sees also Charlie Harris now through and up the order. Now, Charlie does have obviously a 1.3 gap to chase down. Stewart is obviously 1.3 seconds ahead up the road and is outside of that DRS. Now, that DRS was obviously causing Stewart a bit of issues in that first stint, but a bit of a slide coming out of Toza. And as we go up the hill towards Piratelli, obviously that's going to see that gap shrink and back within that crucial 1 second. So now obviously Charlie Harris will get the DRS and therefore will benefit off that to good use. And you can see he's also using up that battery just to get within maybe that 1 second window of obviously Stewart, knowing how critical that DRS could be. But we're not seeing a Stewart use up any obviously ERS, and he's obviously maybe accepting of the fate that he is going to be caught here, and therefore is going to be within that 1 second Charlie Harris will be. But you can already see the gap already that them two have already built themselves, and it's 2.5, and now Appledorn's going to lose another position to Top Car Flogger down the straight, and that's now Top Car Flogger past the Red Bull. And is this going to be also Mans Not Bob getting past the Red Bull too? Yes, it is, and does a nice move around the outside into the Villeneuve chicane, and that's now Appledorn down to 5th and tumbling down the order. Well, on them 14 lap hold hards, and obviously given the tyre life or tyre compound he's on, you know, compared to those guys around him, he is obviously going for that offset strategy, but how much can he offset it by, and how competitive will it make him come the end of the race is going to be the ultimate question. But we're seeing Mans Not Bob go round the outside into the chicane there before we get to Ravazza 1 and 2. And that is a lovely move by Mans Not Bob to get that position done. Very, very nice. 2 nice moves from Mans Not Bob in a single lap. That has to be said. And yeah, that is a very, good on him sort of situation there by the Alpine driver of Bob. And yeah, lovely stuff. So we're seeing also Tom and Elliot go for it. Elliot and Tom do both have DRS, so both of them will effectively have similar straight line speed. So it's all going to be just coming down to who can get the better purchase out of those tyres. Right now, Elliot's tyres is actually a lap younger than Tom, so Tom must have pitted probably before that safety car did get deployed and went on to a set of the hards. So yeah, he obviously did stop just a little bit there before that, or maybe he stopped on the lap as it was deployed and it was under virtual safety car, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, right now Elliot is pressurising the Mercedes with his Aston Martin, making it all big in the mirrors. Abegduri hasn't really come up through the field. Obviously he's also on quite old tyres. They're at the moment 14 laps old, so same with Appledorn. I expect we'll probably see him in too. We'll say though, Appledorn on this lap doing a little bit better now that he hasn't got anyone behind him, and Elliot's actually gone off the track there, which has seen him now drop down into 9th, and as he comes back on is fighting Lucky Egg for that P8. That sees also FCS and Shade up now to 7th, as he was right now, well, he was in 8th there. So he's gained another position. And Mans Not Bob flying along at the moment. He's in fact now up into 2nd. So yeah, he's really using up those mediums. The only thing about the medium tyre, whilst he will gain good speed, but he will obviously see a drop off eventually at some point sooner than the hards. Now I do wonder, as I say, can the medium runners also get to the end of this race? That's the other question that has to be foreseen. Also, the only thing is, that move there has sort of been a bit of a disruptor to Stewart, and Stewart's actually dropped now about 1.9 seconds to the race leader. So right now, one of your championship protagonists is only in third, and he's only a car ahead still of Appledorm, and is only about 3 seconds up the road, which isn't that much when you consider it. So, yeah. And Appledorm is on the hard tyre, bear in mind, 17 lap hold. I'm not saying I would have expected more, but I would have maybe expected, well, a little bit more in terms of deficit that Appledorm would have had by now. But I suppose after he sort of came under no pressure for about a lap, it's sort of probably allowed Appledorm to settle back down into a rhythm, and not just settle back down into a rhythm, but find a bit of pace there before he makes his stop. And I imagine he'll be making his stop imminently, and I imagine he'll probably also go for a set of the softs, which, well, that will probably be his tyre of choice. Now, trouble is, if I was Stewart, I'm just saying this, do I come in and cover off Appledorm, or do I stay out on what I've got and try and make the end of the race? Now, I know, obviously, Appledorm is going to have a huge gap to make up, a huge deficit when he does decide to pit. He's going to have almost about 30 odd plus seconds to make up to Stewart, who currently sat third, but yeah, it's a really tough call, I think that is. Well, I mean, obviously it's not a tough call. The obvious answer, you stay out and you get the podium, but then again, do you think about covering off your title championship rival in all of this and just think purely of the championship over, obviously, the consequence of losing a podium? That is basically what I think has to be levelled at or answered, but we'll find out. And in fact, I imagine we'll find out pretty soon what, obviously, Appledorm will do. And when Appledorm does rejoin, he will probably rejoin, I think, about 14th, maybe 15th, actually. I don't think he'll rejoin behind Morgan. I think it's about a 30-second pit loss around here, so that would put him down in 15th. So I would see him have to clear, well, vast majority of cars, and in comes Appledorm. So what does Appledorm go for? He's actually gone for the mediums. So hasn't gone for the softs. Decided mediums would be the correct tyre. Fair enough. I probably would have gone for softs, but that's just me. And as I say, where does he rejoin? Is it going to be behind Morgan? Not behind Morgan, behind Lange. And it is behind Lange. So it comes out now. So that's then the gap and the deficit Appledorm's got to make up. 30 seconds on a set of mediums. Yeah, I think that's going to be a bit too much to ask here. But FCS and Shade has actually crashed and caused a safety car. So that actually has probably come out at the worst time of asking for Appledorm. Oh my days. Is this turning into another Hungary? Stewart right now is looking very good for the title here, but I don't want to jinx it like Hungary. So, Charlie Harris has now decided he wants to be the one to not make a stop. So, what tyres are they going to go on? Are we going to see anyone put on the softs? Well, Man's Not Bob is taking my advice. Softs can make the end, and he's gone for softs. Stewart has played it maybe a bit on the side of caution and gone for a set of mediums, but Top Car Vlogger going on the softs, and I think we're going to see a lot of them soft cars, or a bit of a split here by the looks of it. So some going soft, some's going mediums. It's a bit of a very odd split. Valency does get obviously then there a position, and actually Appledorm hasn't come out too badly come out in 4th, so that could be worse, for sure. Plus, those tyres wouldn't be that badly affected, but yeah. I suppose actually that's probably nicer for Stewart actually, considering his rival's just behind him. Because, effectively, you're now going to be fully focused on your rival and getting to the end of the race and not making the mistakes. I suppose that's how I would consider it. I mean, yeah. Anyway, Arbeck Dury is also probably benefited out of this as well, because he's actually up to 7th again, so back inside really contention to be maybe not the win here, probably for Arbeck Dury. That's a bit of a stretch too far, but certainly maybe a podium is on the cards for Arbeck Dury, or a top 5 at least. Trouble is, we're going to have to see how those softs get on. I reckon they'll get on very, very nicely. I think the softs... You know what? I think Man's Not Bob is the favourite to win this race now. He certainly had the pace on the mediums. That's for sure. And he certainly has the pace really all around here actually today. He weren't bad in qualifying. So, yeah, there is a good chance Man's Not Bob is going to be today's race winner. So, we're waiting for this second safety car to come back into the pits, and obviously once it does we can go back to the racing green once again. Right now Charlie Harris is your race leader, but Man's Not Bob effectively is on, well, superior tyres, not just in terms of the grip that they would initially have anyway, but also in terms of the tyre life that is on them, and in terms of how many laps he's done. For Appledorn, effectively that 30 seconds he lost is now nullified, and for Arbeck Dury, he is right now, well, back in this race to some degree. So, that is the state of play. Right now, Top Car Flogger and Man's Not Bob are the only two inside the top 5 to have gone for those softs. But obviously Stewart maybe playing things a bit safe here and gone for a set of mediums. With 9 laps to go, it'll be 8 laps once the safety car comes in. So as I say, them softs certainly should be more than easily and capable of getting to the end of the race. Hence, I would have gone softs myself. And yeah, that certainly would have been more beneficial. But for Stewart, he will have a bit better longevity in the end. But for Man's Not Bob, I don't see now a way he cannot go on and win this race. But can't discount Stewart. He is a quick driver too. But I just think Man's Not Bob has got a bit more pace here this weekend. And with those softs now on, he's going to have the advantage all the way to the end. And by the time he gets through Charlie, unless Stewart can get through him pretty quickly too, then things might be a bit different. But still got a lot of laps. We know how hectic Hungary was, and is this turning into a bit of a similar situation and a similar story? Right now we've actually had, I think, 3 different race leaders. Obviously Charlie and Stewart, but not sure if Man's Not Bob actually led a lap there. He may have done, but nonetheless, Arbeck Dury right now is 7th. Iron Kid in 12th. As they now back the pack up. What can Charlie Harris do here to try and defend against Man's Not Bob? And can he stay ahead, obviously, of the chasing pack? But we're going to find out soon. So, we are back to the racing green, and it's an okay start. We'll restart by, obviously, Charlie Harris. But here comes Man's Not Bob on those tyres. Can he go around the outside into turn 1? Certainly going to give it a go. Does have a look at giving it a go. He's made a little bit of contact with the race leader. Not with race leader, with Man's Not Bob. Taking a very aggressive line. Top Car Vlogger going for it then there. Stewart decides to basically yield the position to, obviously, Top Car Vlogger. Doesn't really put up any defence at all whatsoever and decides that was not worth it. So remains ahead and cleanly ahead of, obviously, Appledorn, his championship rival. So clearly, that is that thought there. That thought process going on for Stewart. Just think about the championship at the moment. Don't think about anything else. And maybe trying to also be a bit cautious in terms of with his braking. Doesn't obviously want to run into the back of them either. So we're going to have to see how then this develops. Obviously there is still a fair distance to go. But as we lead then the first lap, as we get back to racing green, it's still Charlie Harris ahead of Man's Not Bob, who is delaying Man's Not Bob. What surely will be an inedible then time for him to get back into race lead. But as we get to the exit, what can Charlie Harris do this time? Surely it's going to be at the second time of asking too much for the Ferrari driver. But as we go down the straight, it still might not be enough. But late on the brakes is Man's Not Bob, and he gets up into P1 then and into the race lead. But here goes Stewart then, trying to make the move then for P2. This would be down the inside. And I'm not sure, has he got it? He's a bit forced off the track by Charlie Harris. Charlie Harris does need to be a bit considerate here because he is dealing with a championship rival, one of them. And it's a huge DNF for Man's Not Bob. And that's going to cause a third safety car in this race. And that is certainly not the outcome Appledorn wanted, because that is a huge DNF for the championship leader. And, well, a huge gain, potentially, for Stewart and for Arbeck-Dury. Going into it, Appledorn needed 20 points to outscore his rival if he was going to win today the championship. But by the looks of it, right now, he would be getting outscored by 20 points. And, of course, well, by more than 20 points, by about 26, I think it would be. And, of course, what that would mean for the championship, effectively, going into the final round, right now, Stewart would have a 13-point lead right now to, obviously, Appledorn. Probably not have as much of a lead to P5, but certainly would have somewhat of a lead. But yeah, a third safety car and a huge DNF now for obviously one of them. That is significant when it comes to the championship fight, which I'm sorry I emphasise on the championship so much, but obviously that is really where the battle is at the moment, and it is such a huge fight at the moment between the three of them that it only takes really one result like this, and yeah, that could be the difference between winning and losing the championship. And you know, at the start of this race, it was Arbeck-Dury the one with the adversity against him. Right now, this race probably couldn't have gone any better for Stewart, really. He has just been the one to obviously be rewarded by everything at the moment in this race. Touch wood, of course, and hopefully he will finish where he is, because we know in Hungary he was on for a great result there too. But, well, I'm pretty sure we don't need reminding what happened there. But, yeah. Appledorn obviously out. As I say, it's a very contrast now to what it was for, obviously, Al-Baghduri at the start of this race, who was the one facing adversity. Now look at where he is. He's up into 5th at the moment, and looks like he's the driver that will also gain a whole load of points from this result, potentially here. But there is, of course, still probably about when the safety car comes in, at least 5 laps of racing to go. And anything can happen in those 5 laps, of course. Of course, Charlie Harris, though, not going to lie, I think does need to be a bit more careful when it comes to the aggression, because a few times there did push, obviously, Stewart off the track, did push Man's Not Bob off the track. Just, I mean, you're on 17 lap old tyres. I don't see where you're going to defend. I'm not saying don't defend. If you can defend, defend, but just be a bit considerate when you're on that light tyre life of, you know, the tyres that you're on. You're obviously not on squeaky new tyres where they're obviously fresh. They're going to be obviously worn, and compared to the drivers he had around them, or around him, going to be extra warm. Still. For Stewart, I'm not really sure whether this benefits him, or whether it benefits Bob. Trouble is, with Bob, effectively, he will still wear up those tyres during the safety car, but not as much. So, 5 laps he has to do. They've probably about had 3 laps of racing, so it does take the wear off a little bit. But anyway, so how does Bob restart this race? I think he might have just gone, and he has gone, not wasting about, and Stewart's gone with him. So as we head then towards turn 1, turn 2, it is Stewart and Bob leading the way. Then into obviously turn 1 and 2, we've also got Charlie Harris being pressurised by Top Car Flogger. Top Car Flogger doesn't able to get through, but he is going to certainly still be filling that Williams with his William Blue in that Ferrari's mirrors. Al-Baghduri following behind in 5th. Then we got Dan 6th, and Tom and Lucky Egg both in 7th and 8th. And then any sort of moves going on a bit further back? Yes, we do have a move. Brian going around the outside. We've also got Morgan going around the outside of Vouncey. Vouncey a little bit barged off the track there. I think, though, Morgan didn't mean that. Just a little bit of an error in terms of the exit there by himself. And Vouncey now down into then 17th and the last of the runners. But as we come then round then here for the second time after this safety car restart, actually I tell you what, Stewart's sticking with Man's Not Bob pretty nicely and does have the extra ERS to help him out. So can he put that to good use? And are we about to see a lead for a switch for the lead? Right now I don't think we're going to see one on this lap, but he is keeping up with them soft tyres very, very nicely, and if he does that, he will be certainly sooner rather than later into then the lead as well, and DRS will be enabled. But Al-Baghduri's off, and Al-Baghduri's actually out, I think, of the race. He's been punted by Iron Kid, and that, I think, is another safety car. But Al-Baghduri, yeah, punted out. So we've lost two of the championship protagonists. Al-Baghduri out, Appledorn out. Stewart could win this race, and I'll tell you what, Al-Baghduri could be out of the championship if Stewart does win this race, because effectively he would win 30 points for himself, and would not just win 30 points for himself, but would therefore be the driver who would win. Well, would gain all them points. So yeah, this is, you know, intriguing stuff. Now, I imagine we're going to see drivers, a lot of them, stay out because, again, the tyres they put on haven't had much racing on them. Charlie Harris still staying out on them 20 lap hold me hards then here. But yeah, that's a devastating blow to two of the championship protagonists. But this is Stewart's Christmases all coming at once, irrespective of where he finishes now. Because, you know, yeah, I don't even know what the worst points he can score. In fact, I need to have a look to see what's the point system actually is, just so I know. So, just to put a bit of perspective into it, okay, so if if Stewart finishes where he finishes, he gains 26 points. Effectively, you'd have a 27-point lead over Arbeg Dury into the final race of the season, and would have about, I believe, a 13-point lead, or a 14-point lead, I think it would be, over, okay, Appledorn in the final race of the season. So a pretty comfortable lead over the pair. If he finishes first, then in this race, he would obviously, I believe, be pretty much only have Appledorn to contend with, and would have about a 18-point gap to Appledorn. And if he finishes 7th, he will take the lead of the championship. If finishes 8th, would only take 12 points, and therefore be on level points for Appledorn. So the best actually Appledorn can hope for is Stewart has an incident and finishes in 8th. But if he doesn't, then obviously Stewart is going to be your new championship leader. So they are ready to go racing, and on the race restart, obviously the way Man's Not Bob has stacked them up has allowed, obviously, Top Car Vlogger to maybe get alongside. He's certainly put Top Car Vlogger or Stewart under pressure as they head into turn 1 on the final lap. Then here we are, or the second final lap then, as we get racing once again. Stewart still leading the way then, in the championship at least, as we head through turns 1 and 2, but into the Villeneuve chicane. He's had a spin, and Stewart has dropped then the car, and is going to drop down into 6th, effectively losing a haul of championship points, and is now in 7th. So will still take the championship lead if he finishes there, but needs to finish there, and he would obviously only gain, have a 2-point championship lead, still going to gain a 15-point championship advantage over Arbeg Dury, but this is what his championship rivals certainly would have been praying for in the end. And both of the 3 championship leaders have lost a lot of points today. Obviously, he might get 6th due to obviously Iron Kid having a penalty. We don't know what penalty Iron Kid will have, so he'll probably have a bit more than just a 2-point lead. Probably have a 4-point lead in the end. But again, cost himself points. All he had to do was remain in 2nd place. That's all. And again, he's cost himself. But as we start the final lap, it is going to be Man's Not Bob taking then today's victory. It should be. Unless Top Car Vlogger has something to say about that. But to be fair, Man's Not Bob doesn't need to drive the wheels off that car, just needs to cruise home, and that is all he needs to do, and he will win today's race for sure. And he's driven a very good race, start to finish, can't be denied. Certainly, for me at least, I think he's got to be the driver of the day. Hasn't really put a foot wrong, went onto the right tyres when needed to do that strategy, and ultimately it's paid off for him in the end. And as he will come down towards Ravazza 1 into then Ravazza 2, he'll exit the final corner, and it's going to be Man's Not Bob from the Netherlands playing the Dutch national anthem 3 weeks early before obviously Max Verstappen. Man's Not Bob takes the race win in Imola From Top Car Vlogger, then Charlie Harris in third. Fourth is going to be Dan Dunn. Fifth is going to be Tom Stewart. Comes across the line eventually in sixth. Losing, though, a lot of points there. Neil in seventh. Iron Kid eighth, but I imagine he might have also more penalties coming his way too after that one gets reviewed by the stewards later on tonight. But nonetheless, it is Man's Not Bob, your race winner here at Imola in in Tier 1. So the Alpine driver of Man's Not Bob, or reserve driver technically I should say, obviously is your race winner, takes this climb onto the top step of the podium and lifts that Imola trophy. That isn't the real Imola trophy. But yeah, nonetheless, Man's Not Bob then is your race winner, followed by Top Car Vlogger in second. And then third, we have Charlie Harris. Dan Dunn is in fourth. Tom in fifth. Stuart in sixth. Seventh is then Neil. And eighth is Iron Kid. Ninth is Kev King. Then 10th is going to be White Elliott. Then Morgan in 11th. Then Lucky Egg 12th. 13th, Brian Lange in 14th. Ralphie 15th. Then Bouncy in 16th. And then the non-finishers, we have Arbeg Duri, even though it does say he's classified, down there in 17th, actually. And then Appledorm, FCN Shade, and Mufasa. So, that has been then round number, well, I've actually forgotten what round number we're on now. Round number 11. It has been there. Spun on lap 1, then lap 9, I took myself out in turn 13. Fair enough, Dan. Presume, yeah. So, oh no, that's Mufasa, ain't it? You're Mufasa. I always forget, Dave, that you're Mufasa. But yeah, no, you didn't have the best of races, but you didn't have the worst. I suppose it could have gone worse. At least you did a lap, and you did more than a lap. You did 9 laps. Could have been 4 laps disqualification. Anyway, driver of the day, as I said, for me is probably Man's Not Bob. He definitely deserves it there today. But as I say, what this means for the championship then, going into the final round of the race of the season next week, then on a Monday, which you will not want to miss. I can reassure you that after today's race. So Stuart, obviously, with finishing 6th, will gain 16 points and therefore will move into the championship lead and will have a 4-point advantage over Appledorm, which in all, for Appledorm, probably isn't the worst result in the end. I'm sure he'll agree with that. Yes, didn't score points, be very, very disappointed, I'm sure, with that. But in the end, at least he didn't get outscored by 26 points, and therefore is still going to be very much comfortably in the championship fight come the next race. And also, for Arbeg it's not the end of the world, because he's only going to be, 17 points behind them two, effectively. So still cannot win the championship. Does have a bit of more work to do, but that is how things are going into the final round. And I just thought I'd clarify that for you then there. So that has been, obviously, Tier 1. I'll be back, obviously, tomorrow for Tier 2. Hopefully, we'll have an exciting race, obviously, there too. Once more. Obviously, the championship situation is a bit more dull in Tier 2, unfortunately, where both championships have been wrapped up. But certainly Tier 1 is very much going to be a thrilling fight come the end of the season. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you're new, please obviously join the Discord, and hope to see you soon for round number 12, the championship finale, which I believe takes place in Abu Dhabi. I could be wrong. Let me just double check. Where does the championship take place? Let me just have a quick look. Is it Abu Dhabi? Oh no, it's China. So, yep, China is going to be the championship finale. So see you all next week for the championship finale.